So today we'll be talking about a few cards. We'll start off with Rank Up Magic Numeron Force. So, target one face-up XYZ monster you control, special summon from your extra deck. One number C monster with the same type as that monster you control, but one rank higher by using it as the XYZ material. This special summon is treated as an XYZ summon. XYZ materials attached to it also become XYZ materials on the summon monster. Then, if any face-up cards are on the field other than this card and the monster summoned by it, negate the effects of those other cards. So this negates every single face-up card once it resolves, basically around here. So that includes your own cards and your opponent's cards, and there's no time limit on it. It's just they're forever negated. So if there was, for example, a skill drain, this would beat skill drain by negating it. This also negates your own monsters though, so you have to be a little aware of that, but as a rank up, this ranks up any monster. If it's an XYZ monster, it can be ranked up into a number C monster, but that makes it a little more specific to use, so the first monster doesn't technically have to be the right monster though, which is a plus. So for example, if we have Time Thief Redoer, so we have Time Thief Redoer, let's just say we have this one, this one, this one, it doesn't matter which one honestly. Then we can rank up to a rank 5. So for this example, we'll use this one, Ultimate Leo Utopia Ray. This card is always treated as number C39 Utopia Ray, so its name might as well be number C39 Utopia Ray, so it's a number C card, for example. So this card and this card, they're literally the same card. This one, also the same. So I have one copy of each, but like I can't put in any more because they count as the exact same card. So let's just put in a redoer real quick. Alright. So one of the things about this is they're only negated well, let's see, then if any face-up cards are on the field other than this card and the monster summoned by it, negate the effects of those other cards. I believe that text means they're only negated on the field though, so if their effect activates on the field, I believe it's negated, but if it doesn't, it's probably not negated. I don't have absolute certainty with this. It would be nice if it did, but probably doesn't, because that's typically how it goes with cards like this. But sometimes there's some weird wording I might have missed. But alright, let's move on to Lost Wind. Target one face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effects. Also, its original attack is helped. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while this card is in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you inset this card, banish it when it leaves. So, very important is all the wording on Lost Wind. First off, special summon monsters only. So, if I normal summon, let's say, Cyber Sign. We'll go Cyber Sign, yeah. Oh, hold up, Cyber Sign. Then you wouldn't be able to negate with Lost Wind. And it also doesn't work against Flu at all because they don't special summon at all. And if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck specifically while this card is in your graveyard, you can then set this card but banish it when it leaves the field. So then you can use it again on the following turn. So this part is also just a little bit awkward because if your opponent just can't special summon from the extra deck, I don't even know in what context you're playing Lost Wind though, but I guess that matters too. So if your opponent can't even summon from the extra deck, this is just still one use, so the recycling isn't as good as, for example, Return of the Zombies, because that's something you can set up, whereas you need your opponent to do something here, which makes it less reliable to set up. And then we'll go to Titanocider. Target one face-up monster your opponent controls that special summon for the extra deck. So this is even more specific, which makes it rough to use. So these both target but a special summon monster, but this one has to be special summoned specifically from the extra deck. And then it says to change its attack to 0. So this does matter for sometimes, but I don't know what extra deck monsters have 0 attack anyway, so let's go ahead and check a few. Let's just go XYZ Link. Oh wait, that would count pens as well. That's actually kind of funny. So we'll stay away from ritual for now because I don't. That's special summon from the main deck. So we'll go ahead and check this. And yep, forgot to remove this. And let's sort by attack this way, I believe it was. Let's see at what point do we get numbers. Oh, here. Our middle. Shura. Our middle. Super vehicle, command attack. These aren't actually zeros though, I think, some of these. This one's not 0 either. Pajama King. Grand Merge. This does have attack. This one does not have attack. Oh right, most notably the Runics actually don't have any attack. Yeah. Sense of Vanity, Relinquished. Alka-Hest. Optimized Logan. This, that. Back on top. So some of these monsters actually do have attack, but the attack is based on their own effect, I believe. Utopia Double. Alright. So, kind of niche usage anyways. Like, yeah. Well, in the sense that you can't find like super a lot of cards that Titanocider actually doesn't negate, doesn't hit, you know? Oh, oops. So, but like it does work on some cards, but notably the Runic ones, which are being played right now, mostly. There's a lot of Runic, yeah. So, all of them have 0 attack. So, negating them, not the best. So, you have to change its attack to 0 and then negate its effects. If your opponent special summons a monsters from the extra deck will discard this in your graveyard, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can set this card. So the difference here between Titanocider and Lost Wind is Lost Wind doesn't actually banish itself, it just sets itself back whenever your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck. Just checking the wording to see if you can use both effects. Okay, so Lost Wind also does have this one other thing about it. The effects are not hard once per turn at all on the first effect here, and the second. So if you had 2 Lost Wind, you could get full mileage from both parts of its effects. The Titanocider is not so much. You can only use each effect once. But you don't really have much choice in when to activate Titanocider, I'd say, because you have to activate it on special summon monsters from the extra deck. Which is kind of weird, but the extra deck is widely in use, so Titanocider, not the worst thing in the world. The changes attack to 0 part. That can be jank sometimes, so it's weirdly inconsistent sometimes, but it's looks like it'd be fine for most of the time. So we're going to go from Titanocider to Yugioh the Absolute Zero Mayakashi. You can only control one Yugioh the Absolute Zero Mayakashi. That's weird, but okay. You negate any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters. Alright. If a monster is special summoned from the graveyard or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard during the damage except during the damage step. You can target one other face-up monster on the field. Change its attack to 0, and if you do, negate its effects. So this is weird because honestly in the damage step you shouldn't be able to special summon, I guess, but if there was a monster effect that was related to this, I guess, like Algol, I guess, probably would be the one that activates around damage step or something like that. And then you could change an attack to 0. I don't see why it's accepting the damage step on this, but okay, if it is, it is. So this is targeted and it's on a face-up monster on the field. You change its attack to 0, and then if you are able to do so, negate its effects, basically. And you can use this effect specifically twice per turn. So this is like also a floodgate, because it just continually negates any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters. So the issue with this is it has to be an activated effect while the monster is banished. So we'll use a zombie example and go through a few other examples. So if Mezuki activates, that would trigger like this effect to negate, but would not trigger the effect up here, negate any activated effects of your opponent's banished monsters, because Mezuki technically activated the effect in the graveyard. And then for cost, banished itself, which does not meet the criteria for Yugioh, which is a little weird, but Thunder Dragons, on the other hand, their effects, like, example, Thunder Dragon Dark, Hawk, Roar, whatever. If it's in the graveyard, then it gets banished, that's when the effect triggers. So, it would floodgate, like, Thunder Dragon and, like, Fluanderies. Because these also, the effect to add back to your hand, your Flu cards from Banish, it does meet the criteria of being an activated effect in the Banish zone, if that makes sense. Which is, very awkward. Because it doesn't negate, like, this does also specifically say monsters, so it doesn't actually work on, like, if, like, well, let's say for some reason you have a Chengying and then you have banished Waking the Dragon. That doesn't work on Waking the Dragon. It specifically only works on banished monsters activating their effects. So you could negate like a Necrophase, I guess. Or like a Changshi, I think. Yeah, Changshi. Shinobi Necro, I believe, activates when it is banished. So anything that activates when it is banished, I guess. Like, I guess a Tragedy, that could work on like a Tragedy or maybe an Ad Libitum sometimes. I mean, sure. It's also a water, which is interesting. It's one of the very few water zombie monsters out there. Not super interested on focusing on that right now, but overall I'd say like the main usage for Absolute Zero Mayakashi or whatever is it's a link for zombie monster. And in terms of zombie extra deck monsters, you really don't have many good options. So I'll show it off real fast. So we got Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, Link. And yeah, that should be everything. We can put in Pend if we're feeling a little frisky. Zombie. Let's do that. In terms of like, well, we won't look at like the new cards, but they aren't super good anyways when it comes to like being end board cards, I guess you would say, except for Red Eye Zombie Dragonlord, but it's still dependent on other cards, this one. So, a little weird. But in terms of extra deck zombie monsters, you could argue like between like Elblick the Mad Golden Lord and Avendred Savior, because all of these other zombie monsters aren't very good. Like Pilgrim Reaper. Well, we won't count that one, so the Mayakashis aren't that great. 9 Lives, Cat, Flame Ghost, Ghost Rick Alucard. and all of them are pretty lackluster. In terms of like a negate, is it just Zombie Stein and like Lancelot? I think it may be. In terms of extra deck, I don't think there's anything that like negates. Is there even anything that like destroys? Oh yeah, there is. There's Shiranui Sun Saga, but like, yeah, that's probably it. But you can't like actually. This can't be an inboard monster because you need to special summon this to pop, basically. So you can't summon this on the first turn. It would be on a follow-up turn. But you don't have like a quick way to summon it anymore now that I think about it, actually, Sun Saga. So you don't have like a formula to use on Sun Saga, or to special summon Sun Saga to pop on your opponent's like turn on the second turn. So Sun Saga actually got worse since Hawkman. I didn't even think about that yet. Wow. But then that just literally leaves probably this, but this requires 2 level 8 dark monsters, which is annoying to meet that condition, honestly. Yeah. If you use Doom King to make this, it's pretty weird as well, because this card puts itself to defense position after a negate, and it only has 1,000 defense position, or 1,000 defense points, so it would get run over pretty easily as well. Wait a second. And if you do. So this card has to be put in attack position constantly, which is weird. But if it's not in attack position, you actually can't negate. So let's run down a quick example. Let's say I activate... It doesn't really matter. Let's say I rank up Magic Numeron Force, alright? Okay, good. Then in this next turn standby, if I unleash the sun with like whatever card, this can't negate because it's in defense position. Like in this case, I'll say we'll use Swallow Slash, because sure, why not? So we activate Swallow Slash, and then you can't react to it with Zombie Stein. That's pretty hella awkward, honestly. But anyways, Yugioh, that's the Zero Maikashi, is still somehow one of the better, I guess you might call it, better zombie monsters you have in terms of like what you might be using for an inboard. But also, its effect here, a monster effect has to be activated in the graveyard, or a monster has to be special summoned from the graveyard to trigger the effect. So this makes it even more specific and reliant on other monsters as well, in the same way that like kind of Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord and Sun Saga are, because you have to return any number of your zombie synchro monsters that are banished or are in your graveyard to the extra deck, which is a weird restriction, because that means you ideally want to summon a bunch of zombie synchro monsters, or just synchro monsters with zombie world up, sure, whatever, and then Sun Saga, and you would obviously not summon Sun Saga on air. So then, wait. Then you can destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number of cards returned. If your opponent like pops one of their own cards, does that negate Sun Saga actually, if Sun Saga has like that many synchros? Well, I won't think on that too much because that probably won't happen, because it's already a struggle. With Hulk, we only have like maybe 2 or 3 like synchros to return at most. So I'm not gonna think on that too much. Well, let's see. Well, I mean, you have the choice of how many you return, I guess, at least. But overall, Yugioh, that's the Zero Maikashi. If we just look at it as a standalone card, it's not very good. So even though it has 2 negates here technically, like, pretty awkward. if you want to activate like a Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord, that only will activate this once. Which is like alright, I guess. It's kinda whatever. You still need to find the cards to trigger this. So like a Bolin would trigger this, or a Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord notably. Or your opponent can trigger it themselves. And it says if here, so this activates on the next chain actually, I believe. So it doesn't work super well against a quick effect that can just kind of be unloaded here. But I guess, for example, on Branded Fusion, so Branded Fusion, when Branded Fusion is activated, well, it's not showing. So I guess like chain 1 Branded Fusion, and then this doesn't say when at least, and it says if, so it can't miss timing. So chain 1 like Branded Fusion, and then chain 2 you would like activate Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord, and then in the next chain it would go Lubellion and then Yugioh somewhere. Something like that. And this effect is, yeah, it's still, okay. So it would work like that. So if you want to use the special summon to initiate this, it's awkward because you need like 2 empty zones to activate it, like with Janko Bolin and Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord on field. So that leaves you with 1 more space, so the end board that I think would probably make the most sense here would be like the Absolute Zero Maya Kashi, Yukiona, and then you have Janko Bolin, Doom King Ballard Rock, and Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord. So even though Janko Bolin banishes itself to special summon, you need a zone available. So you still need 2 zones available. And in terms of stuff that activates in the graveyard, actually, as a quick effect, you would need it to be a quick effect. So I can't actually think of like anything like outside from like a Banshee, which is awkward because you want to honestly hold on to your Banshee a bit. So that kind of sucks if you need to use like a Banshee for Yugioh. And we'll go back to Lost Wind as well. So Lost Wind doesn't have the same restrictions. If there's a 0 attack monster, you can negate it since you halve it, the original attack, apparently. I'm not sure how that even works, because how do you halve 0? Are we dividing by 0 here? 0 divided by 2? Well, okay, I guess. But I guess this just resolves and their attack doesn't change. I think. Kinda weird, but you know, alright. This works alright, but Titanocider, in theory, you could gain some mileage out of it though, depending on what your opponent's playing. Like if your opponent is playing, well, the fact that it isn't done in response is already nice, like a Solemn Judgment kind of thing. Well, not Solemn Judgment, that's not the right card, I'm thinking. Well, it's more like a card like, we'll say, we'll use an XYZ version, so we'll say Numbers Prot. I'll type it weird, don't worry about it. So with Numbers Prot, when a spell trap card or monster effect is activated while you control a number XYZ monster, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So if something gets chain blocked, well, I don't remember the exact scenario where this happens, so we'll just assume Branded Fusion for some reason got to resolve. I guess probably Branded Lost, maybe? But actually Branded Lost doesn't make sense because you can't respond after Branded Lost. So let's not say Branded Lost and instead say the field spell for Alistair. So you can't negate Invocation either though, but it doesn't really chain block either. Awkward. But I think there was a situation where this occurs. where you can't actually number sprout because you have to chain number sprout to the exact thing that's happening, right? So after Branded Fusion resolves, we'll just use that as an example. Um, It'll go chain 1 Lubellion, chain 2 Tragedy. So then in response, you can respond with numbers protection, but not on Lubellion, only onto Tragedy because of how the chain will resolve. But with a Titanocider, you can actually negate the Lubellion still, which is nice. And let's see. Yeah, that's the primary thing. I think Titanocider specifically is pretty decent against Branded because what they typically do is they actually summon one fusion monster and then they'll want to summon another fusion monster after, but it's the fusion monster they summon that summons the next fusion monster as well. So this has some good mileage, honestly, against like a Branded because they keep recycling like a Branded fusion. So I think that's probably what the Konami staff were thinking when they made Titanocider. It was mostly designed against, I want to actually just assume and say like a Branded probably. Like, that would be my guess at least. I think it's also intended to just generally work okay, but like, if I were to say like what archetype this would be targeted towards, like what you're mostly going to want to, in theory, maybe play against it, like if we're looking at just how the card was designed, I'd say it's like against Branded Fusion because like Branded Fusion dumping like Tragedy and I guess Elbaz, whatever. And then the chain blocking, it works well against that. Not so much going second against it, but it's a trap, so that's how it is, I guess. But overall, I think all these cards have like a solid usage and purpose here. But in terms of the most usable card here, it's probably Rank Up Magic Numeron Force and Rank Up Magic Numeron Force. It's not a quick play spell, but it's still pretty interesting and pretty useful. I'm sure there's probably a number C monster that makes like a lot of sense to play, but the condition requires you to have same type, and that is it. It only cares about type, actually, so you can't actually rank up this to this. You need to actually make a warrior to rank up into Leo Utopia, right? I must have misspoke earlier then, or I forgot. That's my B there. So any XYZ warrior actually then in that case. So let's look for an interesting one. Oh, that's kind of funny. You can cook. It just works on cook. That's funny. On Photon and Alexandra Queen, I guess, as well. The usage is more niche and specific, though, I guess, for the Numeron rank up here, which does probably contribute to it being better, but, cowboy. You can cowboy here. Very interesting. Exo Sister. Lavalval. I'm not sure of like how many C cards there are, like the number C monsters there are, but there might be other uses for rank up Magic Numeron Force that I don't really know of. But I think it's pretty interesting. And it can set up some good stuff, and it can out certain things as well. The one I want to focus on being mostly like a skill drain, and floodgates and the like, stuff like that. In fact, rank up Magic Numeron Force would bend over Zombie World so hard. Because even though you have Algol Mazra now, your entire board is negated by Numeron Force. But if you do survive the turn, you do have the benefit that you will be able to still activate like a glow up bloom because you do have a zombie world on field even if it's negated, but Doom King Ballard Rock's effects won't be able to be done except by using him in response to your own cards, not so much your opponent's cards, so you can only really activate the banish effect, not so much the negate effect anymore. But the banish effect is still good. So we'll just leave it at here for today. And yeah, I'll probably do another video somewhat like this again soon. So see you guys.